thank you all for joining tonight. I certainly appreciate you coming online to see what we're up to here at the Greenways. And I would like to, thank Mika and Sarah for putting all of this together. This tech is way beyond my ability and my pay grade, so it's great that we can have this ability now. I hope everybody's been safe and isolating with friends. What I'm going to do is, as Mika went over the overall trail grouping and in description, the rationale for this whole idea was because we always had a spring dinner for our volunteers. And we said, well, we haven't been able to do that because of the COVID-19 issues. So we decided, well, let's start out with this. So this is going to kind of be run like the speech that I usually give, or the back and forth we usually have at our volunteer dinner. So with that, we'll get started. And as always, the first question I get is, what's going on in Pottstown? So I thought I would put that at the top of the list. And we have good news that the Chester County section is going to be bid this fall, or in July, in a month and a half. And for those that you can see the graphic, this is going to be between Parkerford and Pottstown. It's about a couple of miles, goes through Frick's Lock Village, which is historic, and it connects with Parkerford, which is also historic. So it'll be on the SRT alignment. So it's going to follow the railroad alignment out of Parkerford toward Pottstown up to Frick's Lock, take a left, as you can see, and then follow the old Schuylkill Canal through what's called Towpath Park into North Coventry and across the Route 422 bridge, which was recently installed. Well, recently is kind of a misnomer. It was supposed to be built about 10 years ago, but every time I asked when it would be constructed, they always gave it 2 more years. So I finally decided better not to ask, and maybe it would happen. And it did. So can Mika, next slide, please. Okay, this is looking at it from the Chester County side. This is the ramp coming up to 422 off of Route 724, if you're familiar with the area. They put an extensive shoulder right here to carry the Schuylkill River Trail along that ramp. And it's going to lead up to its own lane. Next slide, please. So this is what you see for those of you in the Pottstown area who looked over the shoulder and said, what the heck is this thing? This is the Schuylkill River Trail. It's kind of a long story as to how it arrived, but there were attempts by PennDOT multiple times to eliminate this lane after there was a commitment to put it in, but they did, and we're very thankful for it. This is going to rejoin the trail between Chester and Montgomery counties. When it's complete, it'll be completed next year in the Chester County side. The Montgomery County side has actually got a designer on board now. They're still going through some of the acquisitions, but I would expect that their work would then follow in a couple of more years. So we might actually be able to get across the river and maybe up to a parking area on the Montgomery County side sooner than that. It would be nice to be able to do that. And then we would have no impediments from between Birdsboro and Philadelphia. We still have the 3.5 mile piece missing between Gibraltar and Birdsboro. Still waiting for a good alignment there. And who knows, that may be in Exeter Township on the eastern shore. But it'll be kind of a all marked trail between Reading and Philadelphia in about 2 to 3 years. So we're really pleased about the progress the counties have made here. Next slide. Okay, for those that have followed what we've done for many, many years, this has been a long-standing issue for us. The Auburn Bridge, for those that have been on the Bartram Trail, as you know, it starts in Hamburg, goes over to Kernsville Trailhead, and then goes north about 6.5 miles through the beautiful Kittatinny Ridge Gap. It's just an absolute delight to go on that section of trail, and to me, it's one of our prettiest. At the top of the gap, though, the trail ends at the Schuylkill River. That's because of the railroad bridge is not passable. So we've been able to work with Schuylkill County, Schuylkill County Conservation District, DCNR, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the Office of Surface Mining, who had funds for coal country areas in economic development, and of course the townships, which are South Manheim, West Brunswick, Borough of Auburn, and Ken and Jean Porter, who have been great supporters for us and gave us the easement for making the connection across the river to River Road, which will then connect to a 3/4 mile piece that we have that goes to Route 895 in Auburn. So this is the overall plan. And what I would kind of like to show you is, if you look at the alignment, I'm going to start from where the trail ends right now. As you can see, it's all the way to the right, it's gray. As you come across this bridge, you will come across a redecked portion of the bridge. If you look directly underneath that, the river graphic there, you'll see the typical deck section. You all need to blow up your screens as big as possible. There's a lot of detailed drawings that we're going to talk about. So if you don't have it blown up, you're just going to see a blob. So it'll be about a 14-foot wide deck with rails that goes right across the Schuylkill River. And if you've ever been in this section of the river, you know how beautiful it is. It will then cross over the river and take a right-hand turn. And if you look below the graphic of the deck, you'll see the right-hand turn. It's going to fly over a pie-shaped parcel. You can kind of make it out, and then land over at the Porters on another ramp, which will then come down to where you see the beige color ending and the gray color starting. Where the gray color starts will be a trail, 10-foot, 12-foot wide, suitable for emergency vehicles if they're needed, or maintenance vehicles, that will then work to River Road. River Road is a dead-end, single, one-lane gravel road, not heavily traveled. So we're very encouraged by this. And this is a gateway project to Schuylkill County that's going to join Berks County. This is a very critical piece. Next slide, please. So we've broken it up into 3 phases. The first phase is what you see here. This is where the ramp will be going. We needed to readjust the floodplain area, and so we were able to do that ahead of the design work. So right now we have a contractor who's already started clearing out some trees, and will be beginning to do the grading here. So this is our first phase. Next slide, please. Here's the overall for the bridge. Tim showed this on Friday. This is the high bridge, and this will be the second phase of the work, which will be putting the decking on the bridge itself. The grading that you saw in the previous picture is past the Truss bridge on the right. So this bridge is about 25 feet up. It's pretty impressive views from up there, and it's going to be really exciting to get it done. Phase 3, next slide. This is the bridge ramp. So what you see right there, you see some stakes in. This is going to parallel the road. This is where the ramp comes in. That 90-degree turn comes off the bridge deck. And what you're seeing there with the stakes are actually where the piers that support the ramp will go. This was a picture that was taken after some of the trees were removed from the area, so that the boring machine could come in and do core sampling to find out the stability of the soils. So that's all part of the design work. So this is phase 3, which will start, we hope, next year. Phase 2, we would like to get completed this year. Next slide, please.
Hey, sorry, just real quick. I just want to let everybody know that you can make your screen full screen at the top right hand. You'll have a little box, and you can do enter full screen mode so you can see it better. And then we just have a quick question from John Wolf. Is that bridge photo taken from the bridge over the chutes?
Okay, I'm not quite sure, not quite understanding the question, but the last picture, the phase 2 picture, was taken from the chutes.
Okay.
The chutes on this picture are beyond the stone pier that you see. The bridge, when we put the deck on it, it will overlook the Chutes Bridge. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, my other big project that we're got some really great news on is the Monocacy Bridge. And I just put this quick location map in that you can see. This is to cure an intersection that has been a bit of an issue since Greenways started the trail. We called it the Monocacy Trail Bridge. In the circuit trails, it's now called the Whittaker Bridge. And that's due to the donation by Peggy and Doc Whittaker to the construction of the bridge. The Schuylkill River Trail comes out of Grosstown Road from the Berks County line, and then comes to this crossing. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, this is what the aerial looks like right now. You can see where the yellow pin is where the crossing starts. Next slide. Okay, this slide always reminds me of Abbey Road, but it's just my age. The trail currently comes down off this steep embankment on the right, crosses over on grade, and goes up to another steep embankment on the left. There was originally a railroad bridge here that was taken out when the railroad was abandoned. There's also an intersection that you can see, which is East Main Street and Main Street coming together. So there's a lot of traffic in the area. This is a crossing of the Schuylkill River. So you have a lot of commuter traffic that's coming through, and there's a considerable amount of activity in Birdsboro and in this area for housing developments that will be coming. So we were very concerned about this in the future. Right now, the side slopes are not ADA compliant. The sight distances are not very good. This area does have a history of crash data, which is unfortunate. So for those of you, and then there are some people that will come up to this intersection, turn around and go back so that they don't have to cross. So what we're putting in place here is a bridge across 724. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a bit convoluted, but somehow I think this way. What you see is standing in the middle of the intersection. You have the overall view in the middle, but if you're standing in the middle of the intersection, you look left, you will see the view of Pennsylvania 724 to the west towards Birdsboro, and you look right, it's toward Pottstown. You look on the trails, that's the upper and lower pictures. That gives you a better idea of what we're working with here as we're trying to solve this problem. Next slide, please. Okay, here's a quick sketch of from the top. And again, it's highly detailed, so if you could enlarge your screens, as Sarah suggested, you really can take a good look at it. The bridge will come across starting from right to left out of Pottstown. There'll be a slight curve, and then we will have what's called MSE walls, which will then support the pier and a 115-foot concrete box beam bridge. It'll be 3 box beams side by side, similar construction to the Powell Bridge in Reading. So next slide, it shows even more detail to it. Okay, a couple of things that I would like to point out on this. Down in the lower left, you can see those 3 box beams. So it gets you a really good idea of the construction, plus the fencing that has to go over this. We have to, similar to the Powell Bridge, there'll be a curved fencing over it so that things don't drop on vehicles going underneath. Right next to that, to the right, you see the profile of the bridge. So this is how it would look as you're traveling under it on 724. So next slide, please. And this is that profile again. And this is exaggerated, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how much of this is bridge and how much of it is ground. To the left on that diagram is actually the bridge over Sixpenny Creek. As you're approaching 724, you see how steep those grades are. The brown is the kind of close to the existing slope. The beige on the left and right that you see is going to be new concrete reinforcing MSE walls. They'll have some stone decoration on the corners and some horizontal striping indented into them. But that's about it. It's fairly plain. And then the bridge, of course, will have the rail on top. But you can see how far up we have to take this trail to get over 724. We are required to have a 17-foot clearance between the road and the bottom of the deck. So the whole bridge is about 20, 21 feet off of 724. So the big news about this is we're down to our last 2 approvals. So I'm waiting to hear back from the state on 3 permits. We had to resubmit these again, but I'm expecting to have good news. And then we have 1 DCNR requirement to meet, and then we're bidding. And so we're looking at a June bid, and there are projects out there that are now starting up again. I've been glad to see that. I'm a little concerned, of course, but with the COVID, but we are now back in kind of business with construction. If we let this out during the worst part of the isolation requirements, I wasn't even sure if we would get a bid. But now that things are moving again, hopefully some of the backlog will be taken care of, and people will be looking for new work and put bids in. So I'm hoping that everybody here will be able to join us for the groundbreaking ceremony. Should be in a couple of months. Next slide, please. Okay, we're moving way out of Berks County. This is up north. This is outside of Pottsville currently. It's called the Bowstring Truss. It's Mont Clair Bowstring Truss. I call it St. Clair because that's where we're moving it to, but it's currently located in Mont Clair. Pottstown has been replacing bridges, as we all know, and some of them have been very historic, to the point where they now don't have very few historic bridges remaining, at least in District 5, which encompasses Schuylkill County. So that when they take down an historic bridge, they had to mitigate it with another historic bridge. Not having any in their inventory, they saw this one in Pottstown, or Pottsville, at Mount Carbon. And this is actually, it's an interesting story. It's owned by the Schuylkill County Municipal Authority as the successor to an old trolley bridge that they put a water line onto. Could you put on the next slide, please? So here's a picture of the trolley that connected over to Tumbling Run. And it's, if you look at it, I think it says Yorkville. Yorkville was a neighborhood adjacent to Pottsville, which is now part of Pottsville. So this was a trolley that took people to relax and enjoy the lake at Tumbling Run from Pottsville. The bridge was then used, it was actually a prefabricated bridge from King Manufacturing Company in Ohio. They would bring it in on a railroad, they would assemble it right off the flat cars, and you had instant bridge. It was a kit. Next slide, please. So what we want to do, if you're familiar with the St. Clair area, St. Clair and Frackville is our last section, and we've been doing a lot of work in this area. This is we'll go left to right this time. That will connect to a railroad grade, which will pretty much cut along Route 61 as it goes through the gap in Broad Mountain. It will come down into what's called Coal Creek Plaza, which used to be a brownfields area, which is now a Dunkin' Donuts and a Vito's Pizza and some really nice shops. It will come down into that area, take a quick right, avoid the parking lots, and then cross over Mill Creek. I do get questions, why are we at Mill Creek and not at the Schuylkill River? It's fairly simple. Route 61 is the north-south route in Schuylkill County. We follow Route 61. The Schuylkill River at Pottsville takes a right and follows up one of the valleys. It really does not keep connecting through Schuylkill County like Route 61 does. So we kind of parallel Route 61 all the way out from Reading. So right in here, we're then crossing Mill Creek. We'll come over to the Route 61 side. You can see the brown little parallelogram there. That's an existing bridge, but we couldn't use it because there was insufficient shoulder along Route 61 for a redirected trail. So what PennDOT is suggesting is that they take the Bowstring Truss, they pay for the design, they pay for the restoration work, they pay for the engineering, and they'll even pay for the construction for a trail bridge to be put here at Coal Creek. So it's very exciting for us. We've already started work on the trail north of this, which is to your left as you look at the screen. It's on an old railroad grade, a double wide grade that used to haul coal up to the Monterey Plain. Monterey Plain's got a really cool history, so something to Google if you're interested in old railroad history. But it will then come down and come through Coal Creek and then connect to St. Clair. From St. Clair, it will use the street network. We have another hop over Route 61 to another railroad grade, and then in Pottsville to use the street network to the existing trail piece we have at Tumbling Run. So we put in these pieces where we can and when we have the planets aligned, and the planets are really aligned for this bridge and this trail. For the last 2 years, we've had the Appalachian Conservation Corps working on this trail, and they've been they'll come in this summer and finish up the railings and some of the other things. We have a DCNR grant in to actually put in the trail surface, and then the Appalachian Conservation Corps will then come in after they're done to take care of the seeding and the final grading. So in 2 years' time, hopefully we will have a bridge, and we will have a whole trail section about 2.5 to 3 miles that will connect St. Clair close to Frackville. So we're really encouraged by this, and so we're really doing the 3 bridges now. We're not just 2. Next slide, please. Okay, this was for those of you in the Reading area of Berks County. You're familiar with the 2 bridges we have on Poplar Neck, right around where 176 comes into 422. These were acquired back in the early 90s, and fencing was put in at that time. You can see the 2 blue circles. These are very massive structures. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, the bridge, the bridge is in great shape. Not a problem there. We get it inspected every 5 years. However, the railing was called out and flagged because it's failing. These poles, the posts that you see, they're galvanized chain link fence. They were set into pockets inside the concrete for the bridge. And since what, 1992 to now, it's worked out really well. Unfortunately, these pockets then filled with water where the epoxy holding the post was low, and the bottoms of the posts are rotting out. So we have to now go through at considerable cost to take these out, these old posts, re-drill the holes, and reset the fence. We wanted to do it a different way, but we really couldn't do it budget-wise. So there's about 10 holes that have to be relocated, where the hole actually collected water, the water froze, and blew out the side of the bridge coping. So it's going to be a major project. Next slide. A major project for us, and it's taken about 3 years to get the funds together. Here's some of the details that's coming out of it. As you can see, where these were the end walls, and this is one of the river bridges. It's 690 feet, 702 feet, and this is just one bridge. And so you're talking about 1,600 feet of fencing roughly per bridge. And at $11 to $15 a foot, it's going to be expensive. This particular detail just shows, the end treatments. But I just wanted everyone to understand that we'll be reusing the fabric as much as we can to reduce the cost. We'll be reusing the hardware, the top rails, everything we can to reduce the cost. But will be replacing all of the posts on the bridge. Because if it may look sturdy now, but given the way they were installed, I think they have a limited lifespan left. Next slide, please. So you'll be seeing this one as it comes through. May have to close the trail for that project. This is Angstad. This is an old picture. It's all I had. It shows that PennDOT building the salt barn, which has been there for now 10 years. But if you look to the right of the salt barn, that's the Angstad Trailhead. Hasn't changed that much. There's a sign. There's a bit formal, more formal parking. Next slide, please. And so we have it's going to be, we'll be redoing the trailhead, and we have gotten a grant donation from Rails to Trails. And the reason for that is we offered to dedicate this trailhead to Charlie Marshall. Now, Charlie Marshall is a Chester County resident. He's the owner of Laurel Locks Farm, if anybody's familiar with that. He's a Conrail man, he's a railroad man. He's been an attorney and president of railroads. Years ago, he joined the Rail to Trail movement, and we owe a lot of our trail to rails. Without the demise of the Penn Central, we wouldn't have a Schuylkill River Trail. So he was one of those that was integral to creating Rails to Trails. So this is just his bio. We're going to put this on a sign at the new trailhead. But I wanted to give a little bit of history, and he is local to our area. He lives right across from Pottstown. Next slide, please. So this is what we're dealing with, if anybody's not familiar with it. The trailhead is very barren. We've made attempts here and there to decorate it or improve it. There's a kiosk, there's some signs and so forth. The next slide, please. And this is what we intend to do with it. We'll be putting in some trees, we'll be putting in a new kiosk, new signs, a new entrance treatment, a new entrance sign. You can see the whole list of things. New crossing at Engstadt Lane there that you see with the markings. The work for this, the contracts have been signed, so we will start to see some work coming out soon. It was Rails to Trails. Greenways is also putting some of our funds into it. We'd like to get a fix-it station also located here, and we have a Boy Scout troop that's interested in helping with some of the plantings after we come through. We're hoping that this project actually starts next week to start with the concrete work. Next slide, please. I don't know if we went backwards or I put it in twice. Okay, this is the Montclair Bridge, and so we're down at Montclair in Phoenixville. This was a particular issue for me when I was at Chester County. The bridge that was put in to replace the Route 29 bridge had a 5-foot wide sidewalk. When we complained about it, Montgomery and Chester, they said, you know, you really need to shut up and sit down because you're lucky to have any sidewalk at all. We really didn't want one. Well, time passed and the needs became obvious, where the sidewalk was inadequate. We had dismount requirements on it. We had people walking bikes if they even walked them at all. If anybody's familiar with this stretch, it's at around Produce Junction at commuter times. You just don't want to be there. It is a mess. So Phoenixville took the initiative to correct the problem, had a study done before it, and they came up with the feasibility work and a project. And so we're really glad to see the changes. This was supposed to be completed this year around April. I think they're still doing finishing touches on it. They had to kind of back off for the COVID. So next slide, please. And this is what it's looking like from the other side of the bridge. This is an artist rendition, of course, but this gives you a very good idea of what should have been done when they put in the bridge some 20 years ago. So it's interesting that what you think is needed is finally needed. So next slide, please. Okay, we're kind of finishing up here. We have been putting in these trail counters. Julia is in the picture on the right, who works for our office. She said she is smiling behind that mask. She has been putting in these trail counters. The one you see on the left is a portable one that seems to be having a little difficulty, and the one on the right is one we just put in, I think about a week or week and a half ago. So we're getting data from these. If you see them, that's great. We're hoping they are left alone. If you see any of them damaged, send us an incident report or give me a call or give Mika a call, let somebody know. These things are not inexpensive. And the reason for the counters is to really determine the need for these trails. During the COVID thing, our whole use of the trail has increased over 200%. In some areas, we're thinking it's 250%. We're one of the few areas that have not been shut down, where you can do a social isolation and actually get out and be on the trail. So this is a great time to put out the counters. They've been somewhat successful. Still a few bugs to work out here and there, but they're new. And if you see them, wave, but let us know if there's any damage to them. We have 5 of them in place now, so this is exciting for us. I think that might be the last slide, Mika. I'm not sure. Yep, that's it. So I have a few other announcements. Well, Berks County is here, so they'll be able to do their talk to their bike and pedestrian plan. They involved the Schuylkill River Greenways in their plan for the last year and a half, and I think they've done great work. The plan is very important. It will outlay projects that may receive state and federal transportation funding. So it's a very important plan to us and to anybody who wants to use trails. I have a list to my left, so I keep looking. The Birdsboro Trailhead is another one I would like to mention. Birdsboro took the initiative last year. They got some property from Mascaros. In terms of an easement, built about a 7-8 car parking lot next to the VFW there, put in a fix-it station courtesy of the Greenways, and now have an up and operating trailhead. And this was envisioned when I first started here back in 2007. We've been trying to get something in Birdsboro for a long time. So this is really great news for us and for the folks in Birdsboro. The other things that I would like you to be aware of is we will be bidding tree removal again this year. So there's going to be sections of the trail that will be closed. And the next thing that I would like to mention, of course, is our volunteers. Greg will talk a bit further about the volunteers, but I would just like to say, give a shout out to all of you. You're an amazing group. You put in thousands of hours. And without that, we would not have this trail. We owe it all really to your work and effort. And we have many ways you can do that. Mika mentioned the websites. We have many different ways you can do it. Civic groups, trail keepers that Greg works with, trail ambassadors that Sarah works with, and I'm wearing one of the nice fleeces that you can get if you put in enough hours. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody recognized that we do this with volunteers, and there is no other way to do it for us. Our trail maintenance cost is $700 for routine maintenance, $700 a mile. Compare that to $16,400, which was what I had to deal with in Chester County, and some $30,000 in Montgomery County. So we really do it all here. With that, I've gone over the SRT sections in Berks and Schuylkill. Montgomery County is also continuing to work. They just recently did a whole bunch of work in Norristown, straightened out a lot of issues there. And of course, down in Philadelphia, they're expanding the trail down through the swinging bridge, the DuPont Crescent, and further as we make our way to Fort Mifflin. It's a dynamic, it's a constantly changing project, and we're just glad to be part of it.